Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Cioffi on this Saturday, the 4th of August, 2018. We are going to be taking a look at Hurricane Hector out in the Pacific. That is a major hurricane, and probably will have the new advisory at some point during this live stream. We're also going to look at a system out in the Atlantic. If you remember back about a little over a week ago, I was talking about an upper low that was dropping down in the central Atlantic in between the ridge that's off the east coast and the ridge that is sitting from the Azores east. There's just kind of a little gap there. And actually, there is a low level circulation involved with this. The issue is the fact that there's very little thunderstorm activity around that low level center, and it's moving toward the southwest. We're going to take a look at that as well. We also have heavy rains going on in parts of the Northeast. The last of the rain is finally moving out as the pattern is breaking down, but it is leaving some flash flooding behind. And the rainfall amounts in the last 24 hours in some parts of eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey have been rather excessive, on the order of 2 to 4 inches. So not only do we have flash flooding, but we have river and small stream flooding going on. The serious situation in parts of western Virginia, the dam, a dam near Lynchburg, was at a very, very critical point yesterday. Had shown signs that it was about to break, but they seem to have been able to stabilize it. And one of our regulars here on my YouTube channel, Johnny Quest, has been reporting about this. The rain and the rain pattern from late spring and summer has really produced some excessive rains in parts of western Virginia and into West Virginia on the order of several feet. He pointed out actually that they wound up getting their August rainfall all on the first day on August 1st. Well, at least the weather pattern breaking down now means that the next 2 days should, including today, by the way, for that area in the mid-Atlantic states, so they're done with the rain for the most part, unless there's some isolated cells that pop up later today. But at least for a few days, the weather is drying out. So let's start front and center here with Hurricane Hector, and we'll bring that up on the. There we go. Okay, so we got Hurricane Hector somewhere. Where is it? Yeah. Hector's presentation on the satellite remains rather impressive. It strengthened yesterday afternoon and evening, and that was back to a Category 3 hurricane last night. Now, as we are approaching, as it's 10:33 a.m. Eastern Time, you can see the eye is very well defined on the infrared picture here, and it's continuing on a course mainly to the west. You can see the eye kind's a little bit of a wobble there. Usually that's what happens when these things get to Category 3 strength or better. I'm thinking that the Hurricane Center may nudge up the winds on this advisory, because to me it looks as if the presentation continues to improve, and the eye very, very clear on this satellite loop as it moves along to the west, just just north of 14 degrees north latitude. Notice that the storm remains very small. Gales only go out about 60 to 75 miles from the center, so this is a very, very tightly coiled system. It actually fits in, if we kind of just adjust the eye a little bit and you want to fit it inside one of these one of the latitude longitude squares, you could probably fit the entire hurricane in between that 14 north box and 16 north box, and we're talking there about 120 nautical miles from top to bottom. So this is definitely a small system in size. At least that has been the history from day one with this, and it's likely to remain that way as it moves westward. Now, we're going to go to the this is the advisory from overnight, the 2 a.m. advisory. And I'm going to start off with, you can see where the past track has been on here. And by the way, you can find all of this is on the National Hurricane Center's website, nhc.noaa.gov. And this is their interactive tool, and it's rather useful. You can see where the Hawaiian Islands are. I just kind of wish that they had maybe in a light color a way to see the latitude and longitude and just make it a bit easier to look at. But there's the past track, and the small wind radii, the outer being the gales, and then you have the 50-knot winds, and then the small area of hurricane force winds, which only extend a handful of miles from the center. Now, I'm going to add the forecast track on this. And this is where the Hurricane Center takes it. From the last advisory, they actually nudged this up a little bit further to the north from the previous advisory, but it still would pass a good 140 or 150 miles south of the big island of Hawaii. And notice Honolulu, further out in the chain, the distance that it passes south of Honolulu is even greater. Probably it's over 200 miles to the south. And with the storm of this size being so small, you could have it come within 75 miles of the big island of Hawaii, and they would barely see fringe gales there. There will be an impact certainly to the ocean and the rough seas, but that will occur. But at least looking at what we're seeing, and all of this is going to hinge on the ridge to the north, and also the fact that we're probably going to see this start moving a little more west-northwest over the next 48 hours. It's going to be gaining latitude, and how far north it gets before the ridge to the north turns it back to the west remains to be seen. I think that is the critical issue with regards to whether this is ultimately going to pass very close to or perhaps over the big island of Hawaii, or does it pass well to the south? All of the models at this point show this passing to the south. Here's the official hurricane forecast, which is pretty much right in the middle of the guidance envelope, as they refer it to. And you've got models that have this, the hurricane tracking models that have it tracking north or south of what the Hurricane Center has, the GFS versus the European and UCMET, which have been consistently further south. And we'll take a look at those in just a second. Meanwhile, looking at the Pacific tropics, look how busy the intertropical conversion zone is across the Pacific tropics. It's just crazy. You've got a lot of disturbed weather. There are 3 systems here that have the potential of developing into tropical depressions or tropical storms over the next 3 to 5 days. And of course, to the farthest left, you see the very small Hurricane Hector on its course, and that pinprick eye that is just standing out in the Pacific. Meanwhile, in the Atlantic, we have the system that's way out in the central Atlantic. You can see it. Look at the toward the upper right. There's a swirl of clouds, and there's also an upper low here that's dropping southward. This is something that the Hurricane Center actually mentioned in their tropical weather outlook this morning, giving it a 20% chance of developing into a tropical depression or tropical storm in the next 5 days. While that's going on, notice that the intertropical convergence zone, if you go down across the tropical Atlantic, compared to what's going on in the Pacific, you can see how anemic this remains. We do have a couple of tropical waves, one that is moving, looks like it's moved off the African coast, and there are a couple of other weak ones that are running across the tropical Atlantic. They just can't seem to get going. You still have this African Saharan dust issue to contend with. Maybe that will relax in time. We keep seeing periods where it seems to lessen, and then you get another big shot of dust that comes offshore. Eventually, something's going to have to get going. But if this is going to be a season of homegrown storms, you're probably going to have stand a much better chance of the upper low that's in the Atlantic developing than than anything coming off the African coast. And here's a close-up, the visible view here, the visible shot. And this is a low-level circulation that is moving southwestward. Very little, there's hardly any convection around the center. We see a little bit of a band of convection blowing up on the south side here, maybe about 50 or 60 miles south of what would be the circulation center. But until we get thunderstorm activity to develop right around that circulation center, you're going to have a real tough time with this developing. And here's the tropical Atlantic. Notice again how anemic the tropical Atlantic is with regards to disturbances that are south of 20 degrees north, and it's just non-existent. Very, very anemic intertropical convergence zone. And then right near the middle of the picture, you can see the system that I just showed you in the central Atlantic. Notice, by the way, since you can actually see the easternmost edge of the intertropical convergence zone in the Pacific, how much more active it is with these waves that are coming off from Central America. It looks as if the waves stay very weak until they approach Central America, and then they start to flare up a bit as they cross Central America and then head out over onto the Pacific side. That is usually what you see, by the way, in an El Nino year. We do not have a El Nino yet, but we know that the Weather Service has indicated that there is an El Nino watch. So they're looking at ocean water temperatures on the Pacific side that are a little bit above normal versus the Atlantic side, which are a little bit below normal. I mentioned this yesterday. As far as Atlantic development is concerned, you're going to want to wait and see when the Pacific side drops, activity begins to lessen a bit. All right, let's go back to Hector, and we're going to take a look at the GFS. Thank you, Levi Cowan, by the way, tropicaltidbits.com. Really appreciate all that you do with your amazing, did I say amazing, website, because it really is fantastic. Okay, before I'm going to pull up the Central Pacific maps here. Here's the surface map. But before we do that, I'm going to bring the paint box front and center here, because I want to show you what some of the issues are with regards to the track of Hector in the longer term. And here we have the upper air across the whole Pacific. It's kind of a complicated map, really, but I'm going to simplify this for you just a little bit and show you what's going on. Okay, so why is Hector behaving the way it's behaving? Well, we have a couple of things happening here. And first and foremost, let's outline the ridges, because we have this kind of big upper high that's sitting from the southwest U.S. and extending out across the Pacific. It's very, very narrow in scope, what I would often refer to as a flat ridge. You have a deep upper low in the Northeast Pacific right here with a trough that's extending southward. Now, if it wasn't for that narrow ridge in between, Hector would likely turn northwest and then northward. But there's enough of a ridge there to hold it. At the same time, there is a bit of weakness on the west side of that ridge. So this is why the Hurricane Center is arguing that we could see a course a bit more to the west-northwest. We also have a bit of a weakness in troughing just to the west of the Hawaiian Islands. So if all things being equal, you would probably wind up with this system with Hector. If nothing changed from this, you would probably see Hector eventually turn around the western edge of that upper high into that weakness. And this is where you would probably wind up with some kind of close pass to the Hawaiian Islands. But the problem in terms of the forecast is that that particular weakness is not going to be there in a couple of days when when Hector moves to the west. And I'm going to bring a close-up upper air view of this. And here we go. So now here's the close-up, and now we're at Wednesday night as far as the upper air is concerned. And what happens is, yes, that ridge weakens, but part of it, the western edge of it, actually strengthens a bit. That trough that was west of the Hawaiian Islands pretty much is gone. So you've got you wind up with Hector responding to this upper high. Now we've got weakness in the flow to the east, and you've got weakness to the flow in the west. So this upper high is really going to be key to what Hector does, because if it winds up being weaker, you are going to wind up with a track that's further to the north. If that ridge is stronger, then you're going to wind up with a track that's going to go further to the south. Eventually, the argument would be that once it gets west of the Hawaiian Islands, Hector will eventually respond to this, perhaps respond to that trough near the date line and start going more northwest and north. And the models all seem to want to hold it together as far as it crossing the international date line, which is something that we really don't see very, very often with these tropical systems. So let me come back now. We're going to go back to the maps themselves and take a look at what this all means in the long haul. And we'll put the surface map back up. And then I'm going to check to see if the new advisory is out. So here's your GFS, starting with this morning. And, you know, there's that nudge up going west-northwest, responding to the trough in the Northeast Pacific. And then because there's just enough of a ridge there, it eventually gets deflected back to the west, and it makes it pass south of the Hawaiian Islands, and then just keeps right on going. And by the way, the GFS does have another system coming. It looks like it wants to keep it moving westward as a hurricane across the international date line and beyond. It's very interesting to see this, because it just doesn't happen very often where you start a hurricane out in the Western Pacific and wind up watching it march all the way across, you know, or at least halfway across. We'll see if it makes it all the way across, but it's certainly far enough south that when it gets over to the other side of the date line, that it'll be a typhoon for them. But you know, a little bit of it's interesting stuff when this sort of thing happens. Let me just check to see if the new advisory is up yet. And yes, we do have the new advisory. They've left the winds the same. It looks as if they've left, the Hurricane Center has left the forecast the same. Top winds of 120 miles an hour, 14.2 and 132.7, moving west at 12, keeping it as a major hurricane into Monday morning, and then starting to weaken it a bit. Although the Hurricane Center acknowledges that the credibility of the intensity models in terms of how much to rely on them as far as the weakening is concerned is likely to be some weakening, because hurricanes that pass through north of 15 degrees north in this part of the tropical Pacific and south of the Hawaiian Islands have a history of doing that, whether it's dry air getting involved or strong winds in the upper layers of the atmosphere creating hostile conditions with wind shear, or both. It's kind of logical to assume that it will weaken. They still have this going south of the Hawaiian Islands. We'll have to see how the new model guidance this afternoon treats this. The European continues, by the way, to be to the south. Notice as we go through Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, it really doesn't show it gaining much latitude, unlike the GFS. And then it just turns it straight west or even south of west as it moves it along. And the European, which yesterday during the day was taking it straight west, now is doing what the GFS was doing, which was taking it turning it northwestward toward the end of the period. The GFS from last night went the other way and takes it more west and west southwest as we go through the latter part of the forecast period. So the models in the long range have their issues with regards to where this stuff is going to go. I think I can also probably, let's take a look. I'm going to bring up the, by the way, this is wonderful about Tropical Tidbits in that, you can go to their current storms page, and Levi's got all the storms on one page for you to look at. I can't praise this site enough. And here's everything with respect to Hector. And bringing front and center, these are the hurricane track models from the overnight guidance. Let me make this as big as I can without taking it off the screen. And the models still remain very tightly clustered. There are a couple of models that have that are on the northern side of the envelope, but the vast majority of them have it to the south of the Big Island of Hawaii by at least 120 or maybe even more, 120 miles or even more. That 120, by the way, is not distance. That's the time frame where you see the 120. So this is the track model guidance. Now I'm going to let's put the we'll put the GFS ensembles here, and also the ensembles are to the south, taking vast majority of the members taking it south of the Hawaiian Islands. There are some outliers that bring it very close to or over the Hawaiian Islands. And again, I want to emphasize that if we wind up with a track like this, let's say that the mean there, the dark line, which is basically the compromise of all the different ensemble members, as close as that looks to the Big Island of Hawaii, based on the structure that we're seeing right now, you probably won't even see gales to the south coast, or maybe just touching the south coast at the absolute most. The core of this would remain offshore. There certainly would be impact to the coastal waters. So we're going to have to see, in order for this to truly have land impacts that are going to be significant, you're going to have to see models shift further to the north. They have been fairly consistent in holding on to this southern track. Now, let's come back home and take a look at what's going on here as far as our local weather is concerned. And I'm going to set up the models here for our area for today. And okay, you guys have a nice view of this. Let me just make it a little bit smaller so you can appreciate the all of the geography. Just a little bit more. Okay, so there you have the east, and I'm going to come back to this in a moment because I want to start with what's going on the radars right now. And always remember two things. If a hurricane or a tropical storm is threatening, please consult your local officials, and you can get more information at the National Hurricane Center's website, nhc.noaa.gov, and use that as a resource to do some research and to consult your local officials about whatever decisions you may need to be making. And again, that's nhc.noaa.gov. Okay, so we've got issues this morning with respect to the rain here in the east, numerous flood warnings. The numbers that you see here, I don't know how clearly you can see some of those numbers there, but those are the rainfall amounts. Many of the areas that are in that light green where we have flood warnings receiving as much as 5 inches of rain in the last 24 hours. The rain from late yesterday and particularly from last night just sat there over eastern Pennsylvania and western New Jersey. Rainfall amounts diminish a bit as you go to the east because now the rain area is moving eastward, and the rainfall amounts have actually picked up considerably now for a change. We've actually seeing that on Long Island. And with respect to the radar, yeah, the back edge is finally getting ready to move out. We still have some work to do with respect to rainfall. I'm just going to freshen this up just a little bit. If everything continues to move along, weather conditions have already improved drastically. The rain has ended in eastern Pennsylvania and through much of New Jersey, and it's going to gradually come to an end over the Hudson Valley and over Connecticut, although it is raining on the radar as of almost 11 a.m. fairly hard in Connecticut. We had a big band of rain move across Long Island, but now it looks like that has come to an end in western Long Island back to New York City. Nothing much at all showing up in the areas in Virginia and West Virginia where we have the concerns about dams breaking because of all the rain that has gone on there. So that's good. We do see some scattered activity along the Carolina coast this morning, also along parts of the Gulf Coast, but we are early in the day here. Remember to check your local National Weather Service office for any kind of severe weather for that could happen later today or tonight in some areas of the country. You want to go to weather.gov and go to your local office. Obviously, this radar is dated. We're showing you at 10:56 a.m. Eastern time. Downpours and perhaps some thunderstorms now running through parts of the upper Midwest at this point. And it's morning time in the west and in the southwest, so the monsoon dies down, and you wind up with hardly any activity showing up on the radar there at all. So going forward, we come back to today. So as we start to see gradual improvement in the Northeast, again, that area in Virginia and West Virginia looks like we're going to have at least a couple of days with minimal, if any, activity at all. Hot weather now transitions over into the east. And with sunshine coming back on Sunday, we're going to begin a 3-day stretch of temperatures into the 90s before the next weather front approaches on late Tuesday and Tuesday night with some showers and storms. This front looks like it's going to get hung up somewhat, and that could be a bit problematic for the middle and latter part of the week. The humidity has been just absolutely insane. Dew points that have been up in the 70s, particularly right along the coast. There won't be a real break in the humidity until we can get this whole frontal system to move out. And now we're into Friday, and that same front is just kind of hanging there. And maybe a week from today, we start to get enough of a push to bring the humidity down a bit, but it comes right back as we go into the week of the 15th. So there isn't really too much hope here. I'm gonna look at the upper air because the GFS has been indicating that the ridge in the east wants to perhaps have a bit more fun with us in the longer term. So here's the upper air at the moment, and the trough in the east that's been bringing all these has created the southerly flow, and the tropical air moving up the eastern seaboard is lifting out and disappearing very rapidly. Upper high builds into the southeast on Sunday, and we've got a ridge up along the east coast, so the hot, humid weather takes over. We'll see this next system approaching, but there really isn't a whole lot to it. It's actually rather disappointing in that the GFS days ago was showing a little bit more of a potent system coming into the Northeast, but it's having real trouble with this. Part of the energy lays back. The energy in the northern stream not really all that impressive as it swings eastward. This is why the next front is going to have a real difficult time moving completely through. The upper ridge of the Atlantic is kind of nosing up northward, so you're going to be close to a frontal boundary, and you don't have the whole jet from Canada coming down either. Finally, by Saturday, you get more into a northwest flow, but then we've got another upper high that builds into the east for the early part of the week of the 13th. A little low cuts off the New England coast that helps the ridge to build a bit. Then that gets out of the way, but kind of looks like the ridge wants to have a little bit of staying power going through that week of the 15th of August, and then gradually after that attempts to try to bring a cooler flow out of Canada, fighting that ridge in the eastern part of the United States. Maybe the pattern of the last several months of the ridge wanting to be in the east, perhaps that's taking a bit of a break. Take a look at the European. I just wanted to look at the European's upper air real quick. And it looks like it has the same idea, but even more so, just looking at that frame on day 10. But here's the ridge in the east that builds. The next trough, same idea, folks. Does it get hung up or not? And it looks like it's going to want to, at the very least, stay very warm to hot going into the middle of the month. It may not necessarily be a blowtorch, but it's certainly would mean that we would have a fair share of 90-degree days. One of the things all that rain has done, this is not the strongest upper high in the world, by the way. That's another thing that, at least if it gets hot, it's not going to go crazy hot. All the rain that we've had has put a lot of moisture in the soil, and I imagine that that is going to have some impact on actual temperatures going forward, whatever high temperatures we wind up seeing over the coming days. So it'll be interesting. I think it's going to be pretty interesting to see just exactly how warm we're able to get with this ridging in the eastern part of the United States. It may be limited because of all the rainfall that we've had. The opposite happens when it's bone dry. So coming back to the board with everybody, the weekend is underway. So I hope we all have plans and things to do to enjoy ourselves. Jimmy Anderson, I did see the tornado warning that was up in Central Mass again. There was another one the other day in and around Worcester. I'm just going to check around. We are at 11:02 Eastern time, so please bear that in mind when we're talking about specific weather that is going on at the moment. The tornado warning is done for your area. By the way, there is a flash flood warning up for your part of Mass, and some flood advisories surrounding it. But the tornado warning is done. Just to let you know. So we'll again check your local. If you're watching this on a replay later today, the radar stuff is dated. So go to weather.gov and check to see what your local weather office is doing. Getting severe close to Boston. Delvin says just north of the city, across the Mystic River, getting bad. Yeah, you're going to have to wait for this to all play out. Obviously, it's going to take longer for it to get out of the way for you than it is for me. 2 tornado warnings near the Boston area. Raymond points out. Busy up in southeastern New England. Yeah, I didn't even happen to take a look. Okay, just a second here. Severe weather risk today. There's a large area of marginal risk running from Long Island on up through all of most of southern and southeastern New England, right up into southeastern Maine. So or northeastern. Well, no, yeah, northeastern Maine. So just bear that in mind. Not a surprise. Just got to wait for this last line to work itself through. I'm just reading what everybody is going on, saying. Let's see. Weather Hub TV. And you know what? I got to check out your channel, by the way, which I will do when we're done here. Just trying to run through everybody's comments. A donation, Nick from Howard Beach. Nice to see you. Robert Russo. Weather intensity models invest 97L will become a low-end tropical storm. Not impossible. The intensity models, I have a real tough time with them because a lot of times they're all over the place. It's hard to know which model performs well. You have all this stuff, and then you ultimately wind up saying, well, I'm just going to take the average of everything. Well, that doesn't really do very much. Oftentimes you get outcomes that are not average. But I will say that since we've already seen one hurricane in Chris form outside the tropics, I wouldn't be surprised if this winds up developing somewhat. Pay attention to that low-level swirl to see if thunderstorms develop out of it. Even if it does develop, at the end of the day, unless something radical has changed, we are going to see that thing wind up getting carried out to sea anyhow. So, but I'm going to just take a look. Let me bring up the GFS surface. That's one thing I didn't do before, so we can at least go back and look at that system in the Atlantic and see what it does with it. And okay, so hang on, folks. Bring my video window capture back up. And okay, so that's the system on the GF. It's that L, that closed off low. Again, there's very little convection in and around in the center, which is why they're not making it into a tropical storm. It drops it southward, holds it, and then after that, on Tuesday, it starts to lift it up to the northeast. It's going to be responding to troughing out in the Atlantic. Right now, when we look at the upper air out there, it is... All right, let me just back it up. Start back to the beginning. So there's that you see that big wrapped up cutoff there that's in the middle of the picture. That is your that's the upper air low. The surface low is basically rotating around the northern periphery of the upper low. The system has a cold core nature to it, but over time, the upper low, in systems like this, the upper lows, they need to sit there for many days to warm. And the ocean water temperatures, by the way, are supportive in that area for tropical storm strength. But eventually, you get troughing off Newfoundland that kind of picks it up and then kicks it along out to the northeast anyhow. So 99 times out of 100 storms that form out here stay out there. So they're not. You have to have every once in a great while you get situations where you get something that gets kicked back to the west and southwest, and it does it and moves it along for the long haul. And sometimes they even wind up getting west of 70 degrees west before they turn around and go back the other way. The vast majority of them never become a land issue for anyone. Troughs. Correct, Gary Brown. And then we've got ridges. Really want upper 70s with 50 dew points, says Michael Bologna. Patience. You might have to have a lot of patience here, the way the pattern is evolving. Let's see. Michael Burrell, hi back to you. Let's go. I'm just trying to make sure I got everybody. I had to try to get to everyone's comments, and I know sometimes I do wind up missing what you have, your question or your point, and I usually, and then I wind up seeing it afterward when we go off the air. But I'm just going back down to the very beginning. Okay, so for those of you up and watching in southeastern New England, and particularly up in the Boston area, right now the tornado warnings as of 11:09 are done. You do have flash flood warnings that are up, and that is, and also flash flood watches that cover much of southeastern New England. So that's going to continue for a little while longer, but improvement is definitely coming your way for Sunday, and you're going to get involved into the heat. And of course, the humidity has been an absolute constant. I love waking up to dew points in the upper 70s. It reminds me of the 5 years that I lived along the Gulf Coast. It's not fun. It really has been very, very uncomfortable here. I just wish we could get a couple of days with dew points down in the 50s like we had in those cool shots that occurred back during the month of July. All right, folks, we'll end it here. Be sure to, those of you that might be watching, apparently I'm getting watched by folks either in Hawaii, welcome, or those going to Hawaii, also welcome. Just please bear in mind, it is 11:10 Eastern Time on August the 4th, 2018. So if you're watching this on a replay later today, it is dated, so please check the National Hurricane Center's website for the latest information on Hurricane Hector at nhc.noaa.gov. And of course, do pay close attention to your local National Weather Service office. And if we get to a point where Hector is a threat and there's nothing, there really isn't much here that indicates that, other than that it will be a close pass to the Hawaiian Islands, at least from what we see right now. That ridge to the north is going to be key, but you want to consult with your local government officials. And you know what? This is probably a good time for you folks to make sure you have your hurricane plan in order. And hopefully that you will not have to execute it. So again, nhc.noaa.gov. If you're looking at this radars with regards to any severe weather around the country, please remember that the radars that I've showed you earlier are also dated, so you want to go to your local National Weather Service office at weather.gov and check to see what the latest information is. The links on the descriptor to this video are to Amazon and Ebates. I'm a member of the affiliate programs for both those services, and they provide a means for this channel to earn fees by linking to Amazon and Ebates. You get your stuff at great prices. If you use Ebates, you get cash back, and they throw me back some coin, and everybody's happy. So thank you for those of you who have done that in the past, and those of you who haven't, perhaps you'll consider it. No obligation, obviously. By the way, welcome to a slew of new subscribers. Good to have you on the channel. If you haven't subscribed yet to my YouTube channel, by all means, please do. And you'll get notifications. It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe, but we do live streams at least once a day. And when weather is threatening, we may do multiple live streams. So if you want to be on top of it all, weather-wise, you can set your notifications so this way when I go on, you can watch. J.S. Sweetie, the humidity is offensive at this point. I'll say that's a good word for it. Very offensive. Yeah, the dew points are out of control right now, Gary Brown. We don't often see dew points here. I can remember one instance where the dew point was in the low 8, I think it was like 81 or 2. I forgot when that was, but the day after day, particularly where I am on Long Island, where we've been getting this wind off the ocean, and that's all we get in a pattern like this is a south-southeast wind. The ocean water temperatures are in the middle 70s, and just offshore, they are actually above 80. So the whole bottom part of the atmosphere is basically saturated, and it doesn't even rain. That's the other thing. It barely rains. While places just to the west have been getting clobbered with rainfall, we've gotten very, very little rain this week. But on the other hand, if you like sunshine and beach weather, well, this was the place to be in the last 7 days, because we had long stretches of afternoon sun as the tropical development with respect to the showers and thunderstorms happened just inland of the coast. So there's pluses and minuses through all of this. All right, folks, have a great rest of your Saturday. We will we'll probably see you tomorrow, and we'll give you an update on tomorrow morning on what's going on with Hector, and if anything winds up happening with that system in the Atlantic. Have a great day.